In the bustling heart of a vibrant city, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and luxury cars glided silently along the pristine streets, lived a man named Victor Harrington. Victor was a self-made millionaire, known for his sharp business acumen and relentless determination. He had built his empire from the ground up, starting with a small tech startup that had exploded into a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Yet, despite his wealth and success, Victor was a solitary figure, often shrouded in an air of cynicism. His days were filled with meetings, negotiations, and financial forecasts, but his nights were spent in the vast emptiness of his opulent penthouse. The walls of his home, adorned with priceless art and extravagant furnishings, echoed with silence. Friends had become mere acquaintances over the years, and his family connections had dwindled to nothing but obligatory holiday gatherings. The once bright spark of joy and purpose that had driven him to succeed had dimmed, leaving behind a hollow shell of a man who was disconnected from the world around him. On the opposite end of the socio-economic spectrum was a man named Samuel, a homeless drifter who had seen the harsh realities of life. Samuel was in his late 50s, with a weathered face that told stories of struggle and survival. He wore tattered clothes and carried a small backpack filled with his few possessions. Despite the hardships he faced, there was an undeniable wisdom in his eyes, a depth of character that was rare to encounter. He had once been a high school teacher, passionate about education and nurturing young minds, but a series of unfortunate events had led him down a path of despair and homelessness. Samuel had spent years wandering the streets, relying on the kindness of strangers and the occasional shelter for a warm meal. Though society often overlooked him, he had cultivated a profound understanding of human nature and the complexities of life. His experiences had taught him valuable lessons about compassion, faith, and the importance of connecting with others. As fate would have it, the lives of Victor and Samuel were destined to intersect on an ordinary day that would soon unravel into something extraordinary. Victor, caught up in his usual routine of meetings and deadlines, was returning to his penthouse after a long day at work. His mind was preoccupied with thoughts of profit margins and upcoming projects when he noticed a figure sitting on the sidewalk outside his building. At first, he planned to walk past the man without a second thought, as he had done countless times before. But something about Samuel's demeanor caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way he looked up with a mix of hope and resignation as Victor approached, or maybe it was the quiet strength radiating from him. For the first time in years, Victor felt a flicker of curiosity. He hesitated, and instead of dismissing Samuel as just another homeless person, he paused and made eye contact. In that brief moment, a connection sparked between them, a silent acknowledgement of their vastly different worlds. Victor, who had always prided himself on being in control and self-sufficient, found himself confronted with a sense of vulnerability he had long buried beneath layers of wealth and success. "Can I help you?" Victor asked, surprising even himself with the genuine tone in his voice. Samuel, taken aback by the millionaire's unexpected kindness, smiled softly, his eyes shimmering with gratitude. Little did they know, this simple exchange would set off a chain of events that would challenge Victor's beliefs and ultimately lead them both on an unforeseen journey of self-discovery, faith, and redemption. As Victor stepped closer to Samuel, he noticed the faint scent of the streets clinging to the man, a stark contrast to the expensive cologne he wore. Yet, instead of feeling repulsed, Victor felt an odd sense of intrigue. The world he inhabited was so polished, so meticulously curated, that encountering someone like Samuel was a jarring reminder of the realities that existed outside his gilded cage. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Samuel asked, his voice steady despite the tremors of age and hardship that marked his frame. Victor hesitated, glancing at his watch, aware of the busy schedule that awaited him. But something deep within urged him to stay, to listen. He nodded, and together they settled onto a nearby bench, the weight of their contrasting lives palpable in the air between them. As they sat, Samuel began to share snippets of his life story. He spoke of his days as a teacher, the joy he felt in shaping young minds and inspiring them to dream big. Victor listened intently, captivated by the passion that still flickered within Samuel, even after years of struggle. The stories poured out like a river, tales of laughter, love, loss, and the choices that led him to the streets. Life has a way of teaching us lessons in the most unexpected ways, Samuel mused, his gaze distant as if he were reliving moments from his past. I thought I had it all figured out, but then life threw me a curveball I wasn't prepared for. Victor found himself reflecting on his own life. He had always believed that success was the ultimate goal, that wealth and power would bring him happiness and fulfillment. Yet here was Samuel, a man who had lost everything, yet still carried a sense of purpose and wisdom that Victor struggled to find. "What do you do now?" Victor asked, genuinely curious about how Samuel managed to navigate life without the comforts he had once taken for granted. Samuel smiled softly, a glimmer of hope lighting up his weathered face. "I try to help others when I can. Every day is a chance to connect, to share stories, and to remind people that they're not alone. We all have our battles, don't we?" Victor felt a lump form in his throat. He had spent so much time building walls around himself, isolating from the world and convincing himself that he didn't need anyone. Yet, here was this man, stripped of material possessions, who found joy in human connection and compassion. As their conversation deepened, Samuel began to speak about faith. "You know," he said, a serious tone creeping into his voice, "I believe that there's something greater at work in our lives. A purpose that often reveals itself in the most unexpected moments." Victor raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "Like what?" he pressed, wanting to understand the perspective of a man who had seen the world from a different lens. "Like the signs of something monumental approaching," Samuel replied, his voice lowering as if sharing a secret. "People are too wrapped up in their lives to notice, but I've seen glimpses of change. A return, if you will. A chance for redemption, not just for individuals, but for humanity as a whole." Victor felt a chill run down his spine. Was this man, a homeless drifter, suggesting that the return of Jesus was imminent? It sounded absurd, yet there was a sincerity in Samuel's eyes that made Victor question his disbelief. The sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over the city, and in that moment, surrounded by the hum of urban life, Victor found himself drawn into Samuel's world, a world where faith intertwined with hope and where every encounter held the potential for transformation. Victor realized that this unexpected encounter was not just a chance meeting, it was the universe nudging him toward an awakening he hadn't known he needed. As Samuel's words lingered in the air, Victor felt the first stirrings of curiosity about the deeper meaning of his own existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Victor found himself hanging on to Samuel's every word. The initial intrigue had morphed into a genuine thirst for understanding, as if the universe had conspired to bring them together at this precise moment. Samuel, sensing Victor's curiosity, leaned in slightly, his expression earnest. "Victor," he began, his voice steady, "I know this might sound strange, but I've been having dreams, visions, if you will, about the return of Jesus. They started when I hit rock bottom, and at first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But the more I listened, the more I realized they were messages." Victor raised an eyebrow, caught between skepticism and intrigue. "What kind of messages?" he asked, unable to hide his curiosity any longer. Samuel took a deep breath, as if gathering the weight of his revelations. "In these dreams, I see signs, gatherings of people coming together in love and compassion, a call for unity among all walks of life. I see a world where the rich and poor unite, where the barriers that divide us crumble. It's like a second chance for humanity." Victor shifted nervously on the bench, struggling to reconcile the notion of dreams with the reality of his carefully constructed life. "But how do you know it's real? How do you know it's not just wishful thinking?" Samuel chuckled softly, a sound that resonated with years of wisdom. "That's the beauty of it, my friend. It's not about knowing, it's about feeling. It's about trusting that there's something greater than ourselves. I've seen too much suffering in this world to believe that we're meant to live this way. There has to be more to life than just wealth and ambition." The word struck a chord deep within Victor, who had spent his life chasing success, often at the expense of meaningful connections. "You make it sound so simple, but life is complicated," he replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his tone. Complicated, yes, but not impossible, Samuel countered gently. Sometimes, we need to strip away the layers we've built around ourselves to see the truth. The truth is that love and kindness can transform lives. You might have everything money can buy, but what good is it if you're empty inside? Victor's mind raced as he grappled with Samuel's insights. The man before him, who had faced unimaginable hardship, spoke with a clarity that Victor had long forgotten. He felt a flicker of something, maybe hope, maybe fear, as he considered the possibility that he might have been missing something vital in his life. "What do you think the signs are?" Victor asked, genuinely wanting to understand. Samuel's eyes sparkled with conviction. "The signs are everywhere, Victor. People are waking up to the idea that we're all connected. Look around, there are movements for change, cries for justice, and a longing for something deeper. But many are still lost in their own worlds, too busy to notice." Victor nodded, reflecting on the protests he had seen on the news, the conversations about climate change, and the growing awareness of social issues. "So, you believe that the return of Jesus will unite us all?" he asked, his voice softer now. "I believe it's possible," Samuel said, his gaze unwavering. "But it starts with individuals like you and me. It starts with opening our hearts and minds, allowing compassion to guide our actions. If we can create small ripples of kindness, who knows how far they might reach." The weight of Samuel's words settled over Victor like a warm blanket, wrapping him in a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in years. For the first time, he was faced with a choice: to continue living in the isolation of his wealth or to embrace the idea of connection and purpose beyond material success. As the last rays of sunlight faded and the city lights began to twinkle, Victor felt a shift within himself. Samuel's revelations had planted a seed of curiosity and hope, igniting a desire to explore the meaning of his existence beyond the confines of his luxurious lifestyle. Just as the conversation deepened, Samuel leaned back, a serene smile gracing his face. "It's all a journey, Victor. Every encounter, every conversation, is a step toward understanding. You never know what might happen next." In that moment, Victor realized that this unexpected encounter with a homeless man could very well be the catalyst he needed to change the trajectory of his life. As the evening settled into a comfortable stillness, Victor felt a mix of anticipation and unease. Samuel's words about the return of Jesus and the signs of change hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. It was a topic Victor had rarely considered, having long regarded such discussions as relics of a bygone era, better suited for fervent believers than for a man of logic and business. "Samuel," Victor said, his curiosity piqued, "what exactly did you see in your visions? Are there specific signs we should be looking for?" Samuel took a moment, his expression shifting to one of contemplation. "In one of my most vivid dreams, I saw a great gathering, people from all walks of life coming together in unity. There was no division, no barriers. Just love and acceptance. It felt so real, Victor. I could hear the laughter and see the tears of joy." Victor leaned forward, captivated by the intensity of Samuel's conviction. "That sounds beautiful, but how can we make that a reality? The world feels so divided right now." "Exactly," Samuel replied, nodding emphatically. "That's precisely why it's so important. The signs will come when people start to recognize their shared humanity. When we begin to see beyond our differences, be it race, wealth, or beliefs, we will be ushering in a new era." "And what about the return of Jesus?" Victor pressed, feeling a mix of skepticism and intrigue. "What does that mean for us? How can we know it's happening?" Samuel's eyes glimmered with a fervor that made Victor's heart race. "I believe the return comes not just as a figure arriving in the sky but as a movement of love and compassion sweeping across the earth. Think about it, we've seen glimpses of this before, through movements for justice, kindness toward strangers, and acts of bravery in the face of adversity. When enough people awaken to this truth, it will be a sign." Victor shifted uncomfortably on the bench, grappling with the implications of Samuel's words. So, you're saying that if we start treating each other better, that could be a catalyst for something greater? That's a lot to put on individual actions. Absolutely, Samuel affirmed, his voice steady. Every significant change in history began with individuals who dared to believe in a better future. The more we embrace our shared humanity, the closer we get to that vision of unity. It's about planting seeds of kindness in a world that desperately needs it. As Samuel continued to speak, Victor's mind raced with images of his own life. He thought of the countless transactions he had made, the business deals that had prioritized profit over people. He had spent years thinking of success as a solitary endeavor, a climb to the top of the corporate ladder, but now he began to see it differently. Suddenly, Samuel paused, his gaze piercing through Victor as if he could see into the depths of his soul. You have the power to influence many lives, Victor. Your wealth and resources can be used as tools for good. But it starts with a change of heart. Victor felt a rush of emotions, fear, excitement, and a flicker of hope. The idea of using his position to make a difference was both daunting and exhilarating. How do I even begin to do that? He asked, the weight of uncertainty heavy on his shoulders. Start small, Samuel advised, a kind smile spreading across his face. Engage with your community, listen to the stories of those around you, and invest in initiatives that uplift others. The more you give, the more you'll receive in return: gratitude, connection, and purpose. With each word, Victor felt the barriers he had built around his heart begin to crumble. Samuel's insights were challenging everything he had believed about success. As the night deepened, the city lights flickered like stars, and Victor realized that this conversation was not just a passing encounter, it was a turning point. Thank you, Samuel, Victor said softly, gratitude spilling from his heart. I never expected to have this conversation tonight. You've given me a lot to think about. Samuel nodded, a twinkle of understanding in his eyes. Remember, Victor, the journey toward change begins with a single step. Don't be afraid to take it. As they exchanged a final glance, Victor felt a sense of clarity wash over him. Samuel's prophecy might have seemed shocking, even unbelievable, but in that moment, it sparked a flicker of hope for a future filled with possibility, a future where love and compassion could indeed pave the way for something miraculous. As the conversation with Samuel lingered in Victor's mind, he felt a whirlwind of emotions surging through him. The night air was cool against his skin, but internally, he was ablaze with thoughts and feelings he had long buried beneath the weight of his success. Samuel's words about the return of Jesus and the signs of change resonated deeply, shaking the very foundations of Victor's worldview. Sitting on that bench, Victor began to reflect on his life choices. He had always seen himself as a rational man, driven by logic and numbers. Yet, here was a homeless man sharing profound insights that challenged everything he thought he knew about purpose and success. The stark contrast between their lives had never felt more apparent, and it left Victor feeling unsettled. What if Samuel is right? Victor pondered silently. The thought both excited and terrified him. He had built an empire, amassed wealth, and achieved accolades, but at what cost? As he recalled the countless hours spent chasing profit margins and shareholder satisfaction, a pang of regret pierced his heart. He had sacrificed meaningful connections for the sake of ambition, losing sight of what truly mattered in the process. Can I really make a difference? He whispered to himself, the question echoing in the stillness of the night. Samuel had seemed so assured, so confident in his beliefs, but could a man like Victor, with all his resources and privilege, really bring about change? It felt overwhelming to consider. As he stood up from the bench, ready to return to his penthouse, Victor caught a glimpse of Samuel, who remained seated, a serene expression on his face. The sight of the man, weathered yet wise, stirred something within Victor. What if I could use my wealth for good, he thought, a flicker of determination igniting in his chest. With newfound resolve, Victor approached Samuel one last time. Hey, I want to do something, he said, his voice firm. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I want to help. I want to be part of this change you talked about. Samuel's eyes brightened with a mixture of surprise and hope. That's the spirit, Victor. Every effort counts, no matter how small. Just remember to stay grounded and connected to the people you're helping. Victor nodded, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. I will. I promise. The sincerity in his voice surprised even him. He realized that this was not just a fleeting moment, it was the beginning of a journey, one he was now eager to embark on. As they exchanged contact information, Victor felt a surge of excitement. He was about to step into a world he had long neglected, a world where compassion and connection reigned supreme. The prospect of using his resources to uplift others filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Thank you for everything, Samuel, he said, gratitude spilling forth. You've opened my eyes to something I didn't know I was missing. Samuel smiled warmly, a flicker of understanding passing between them. It's not me, Victor. It's the journey you're about to take. Embrace it, and you'll be amazed at what unfolds. As Victor walked away, he felt a renewed sense of hope. The city around him buzzed with life, but for the first time, he truly saw it, the struggles, the resilience, and the countless stories waiting to be uncovered. He was ready to dive into this new chapter, to seek out the signs Samuel had spoken of, and to embrace the idea that he could indeed make a difference. As he reached his penthouse, Victor paused at the door, taking a deep breath. The luxurious confines of his home felt different now, as if they were merely a shell waiting for him to fill them with purpose. He was determined to transform his life from one of isolation to one of connection, compassion, and love. With a heart full of questions and a mind buzzing with possibilities, Victor knew that his journey was just beginning. And little did he know, the signs that Samuel had alluded to were already unfolding around him, guiding him toward a fate that would change everything. In the days that followed his encounter with Samuel, Victor found himself in a profound internal struggle. The conversation had ignited a spark within him, however, it was accompanied by a whirlwind of doubt and fear. He had always been a man of control, meticulously planning every aspect of his life, but now he was faced with uncharted territory, an emotional landscape that he had long avoided. As Victor sat in his sleek office overlooking the city, he stared out the window, lost in thought. The skyline, once a symbol of his success, now felt like a cage. The skyscrapers loomed over him, reminding him of the corporate world he had thrived in but also of the emptiness that accompanied it. The weight of his decisions pressed heavily on his shoulders. Could he really shift gears and start using his wealth and influence to help others? Am I really cut out for this? He muttered under his breath. Doubt crept in like a thief in the night, whispering that his efforts would be futile, that he was simply a businessman, not a philanthropist. He pictured the boardroom meetings, the financial reports, and the relentless pursuit of profit, all aspects of a life that felt increasingly hollow. Victor's mind raced back to Samuel's words about connection and compassion. It's not about knowing, it's about feeling. But feeling meant vulnerability, and vulnerability terrified him. He had spent years building a fortress around his heart, convinced that emotions were a liability in the cutthroat world of business. Now, the very idea of breaking down those walls filled him with trepidation. He recalled the stories Samuel had shared, tales of hope amidst despair. Victor had always viewed the world through a transactional lens, seeing people as means to an end rather than individuals with their own stories. What if I fail, he thought, the question gnawing at him. What if I can't make a difference? Just then, his phone buzzed on the desk, pulling him from his spiral of self-doubt. It was a message from Samuel, reminding him of a community event happening that weekend, a gathering aimed at fostering connections among people from different backgrounds. You should come, the message read. It's a chance to see the impact of what we talked about. Victor hesitated, his finger hovering over the screen. The prospect of attending terrified him. What if he didn't fit in? What if he was met with skepticism or indifference? But then another part of him, the part that had been awakened during their conversation, urged him to take the leap. This is what you wanted, he reminded himself. This is your chance to step into a new role. After a moment's contemplation, Victor typed a quick response, I'll be there. The instant he hit send, a wave of relief washed over him, but it was quickly followed by a swell of anxiety. He was stepping into the unknown, and the uncertainty of it all sent his heart racing. As the days passed, Victor found himself oscillating between excitement and fear. He began to research community initiatives, seeking ways to get involved. Every article he read about social impact and philanthropy inspired him, yet each time he considered making a commitment, the doubts resurfaced. What if I'm not taken seriously? What if people see me as just a wealthy businessman looking to alleviate guilt? The internal conflict raged on, with Victor grappling with his identity. He had spent years defining himself by his success, his wealth, and his achievements. Now, he was being called to redefine those terms. Could he become a man of purpose, someone who truly cared for others and sought to make a difference? As Saturday approached, Victor's anxiety peaked. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, rehearsing his introduction to the community members. "Hi, I'm Victor Harrington. I want to help." The words felt foreign on his tongue, almost laughable. How could he, a man who had built his life on ambition and competition, now present himself as a compassionate ally? That morning, as he prepared to leave for the event, Victor took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He thought of Samuel, the man who had opened his eyes to a world beyond wealth. "This is not about you," he reminded himself. "It's about the people you can help." With resolve, Victor stepped out of his penthouse, ready to face the world with a newfound determination. He was scared, yes, but he also felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this internal conflict was a necessary part of his journey, a way to challenge his beliefs and grow beyond the confines of his former self. As he made his way to the gathering, he realized that the path ahead would not be easy, but it was a path worth taking. With every step, he committed to embracing the uncertainty and vulnerability that lay ahead, ready to discover what it truly meant to live a life of purpose. As Victor arrived at the community event, he felt a mix of apprehension and excitement coursing through him. The venue was a local community center, vibrant and bustling with energy. Families mingled, children played, and laughter filled the air, an atmosphere that was both welcoming and foreign to him. For a moment, he stood at the entrance, taking in the scene before him. "Just be yourself," he whispered to himself, trying to quell the rising tide of anxiety. He had set out to make a difference, but now that he was here, the enormity of that decision loomed over him. What if he didn't belong? What if people dismissed him as just another wealthy outsider? Taking a deep breath, Victor stepped inside. The warmth of the room enveloped him, and as he moved further in, he was greeted by friendly smiles and open faces. It was a stark contrast to the corporate world he was used to, where interactions were often transactional and guarded. Here, people seemed genuinely interested in one another, sharing stories and building connections. Victor felt a surge of determination. "You're here to learn," he reminded himself. He approached a small group gathered around a table, where a woman was explaining a local initiative aimed at providing education resources to underprivileged children. As Victor listened, he began to see the impact of community engagement firsthand. The passion in the woman's voice ignited a fire within him. "Excuse me," he interjected, surprising himself with the boldness in his tone. "I'm Victor Harrington. I'd love to know how I can get involved with this initiative." The group turned to him, curiosity shining in their eyes. The woman smiled warmly, introducing herself as Maria. "We're always looking for volunteers, and we'd love to have someone with your resources on board. We're planning a fundraiser next month to help raise money for school supplies and scholarships." Victor nodded, feeling a swell of excitement. "Count me in. I'd like to help organize it." The words flowed from him more easily than he expected, and he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. This was it, the moment he had been searching for, a chance to put his wealth to good use. As the event progressed, Victor found himself moving from group to group, engaging in conversations he never thought he would have. He listened intently to stories of resilience, hope, and community. Each interaction further fueled his desire to make a tangible difference. He learned about local families struggling to make ends meet, children with dreams of higher education, and individuals who had turned their lives around with the support of their community. In one corner, he met a young man named Carlos, who had recently graduated from high school with plans to attend college. Carlos shared his story of overcoming obstacles, including financial hardships and a challenging home life. "I wouldn't be here without the support of this community," he said, his eyes shining with gratitude. "People believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Victor felt a lump in his throat as he listened. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks: these were the stories that mattered. These were the lives he could impact. The more he connected with individuals like Carlos, the more he felt the walls he had built around his heart begin to crumble. Later in the evening, as the event began to wind down, Maria approached Victor with a smile. "Thank you for being here today. You have no idea how much it means to us that someone of your stature is willing to lend a hand." Victor felt a warmth spread through him. "It's my pleasure, really. I've been missing this kind of connection in my life. I want to be part of something bigger than myself." As he spoke those words, he marveled at the transformation happening within him. The man who had once been defined by wealth and ambition was beginning to embrace a new identity, one rooted in compassion, connection, and service. As he left the community center that night, Victor felt lighter than he had in years. The doubts that had plagued him were still there, but they were now accompanied by a sense of hope and possibility. He had taken a leap of faith, and it had led him to a community of individuals who were not just survivors but thrivers. With each step toward his car, he felt more determined than ever to make a lasting impact, to be a force for good in the world. He was ready to embrace this new chapter of his life, one filled with purpose and connection. The journey ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but for the first time, Victor felt excited to face it. The change of heart was just the beginning, and he knew that with every action, he could help bring Samuel's vision of unity and compassion to life. In the weeks following the community event, Victor dove headfirst into his newfound purpose. The experience had awakened something within him that he hadn't even realized was dormant. The excitement of engaging with people, listening to their stories, and understanding their struggles filled him with a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced in the boardrooms of his corporate empire. Victor began working closely with Maria and other community leaders to organize the upcoming fundraiser for educational resources. They met regularly to brainstorm ideas and develop a plan that would not only raise money but also foster a sense of community. Victor quickly discovered that planning an event was vastly different from managing a business. This required collaboration, empathy, and a genuine understanding of the community's needs. One evening, while sitting in a small cafe with Maria, Victor shared a vision he had for the fundraiser. "What if we could make it a celebration of the community? Not just a typical dinner where we ask for donations, but a festival that brings everyone together." Maria's eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic idea. We could have local artists perform, food stalls from different cultures, and activities for the kids. It would showcase the diversity and talent of our community." As they brainstormed, Victor felt a surge of energy. This was the kind of impact he wanted to create, a vibrant event that wouldn't just raise funds but also strengthen the bonds within the community. They spent hours discussing details, from logistics to marketing strategies, and Victor found himself enjoying the process more than he anticipated. In the following days, Victor utilized his business acumen to secure sponsorships and partnerships with local businesses, facilitating donations of food, supplies, and services for the event. The more he engaged with local entrepreneurs, the more he realized that they, too, were invested in making a difference. It was a beautiful synergy, where the community came together to support one another. However, amidst the excitement, Victor also faced challenges. Not everyone was on board with his ideas, and he encountered resistance from some community members who were skeptical of his intentions. "How do we know you're not just doing this for publicity?" one local leader questioned during a planning meeting. "We've seen wealthy people come and go, making promises but never following through." The comment stung, and for a moment, Victor felt the familiar pang of self-doubt creeping in. But instead of retreating, he took a deep breath and addressed the concerns openly. "I understand your skepticism. I've been in a position where I've focused on profit over people for too long. But I want to change that. I'm here to listen, learn, and support this community. I'm committed to being a part of something that lasts. As he spoke, he felt the weight of his past mistakes but also the hope of a future filled with purpose. Gradually, the room began to shift, people leaned in, listening, and after a few moments, the skepticism began to fade. Victor's sincerity resonated, and he felt a renewed sense of determination. This was a pivotal moment, not just for the fundraiser, but for his own growth. With the event date approaching, Victor also took the time to connect personally with the families and individuals who would benefit from the fundraiser. He visited local schools, spoke with parents, and listened to the challenges they faced. Each encounter deepened his understanding and solidified his commitment to the cause. As he walked through the halls of a local school one afternoon, he noticed a group of children engaged in a lively discussion about their favorite books. He paused to listen and soon found himself drawn into their conversation. "What's your favorite book?" a young girl asked him, her eyes wide with curiosity. Victor chuckled, surprised by the question. "I think I'd have to say, The Great Gatsby." "What about you?" The girl beamed. "I love Harry Potter. It's all about friendship and bravery." In that moment, Victor felt a wave of warmth wash over him. These children were bright, hopeful, and full of dreams. They reminded him of the impact education could have on shaping futures, just as it had shaped his own. He realized that this was why he was doing all of this, not for recognition or accolades, but for the future of these young minds. As the fundraiser day arrived, excitement filled the air. The community center was transformed into a vibrant festival, with colorful decorations, laughter, and the mouth-watering aroma of food wafting through the halls. Local musicians played upbeat tunes, and families gathered around to enjoy the festivities. Victor moved through the crowd, greeting familiar faces and meeting new ones. He felt a sense of belonging that he had long searched for. The connections he had forged, the stories he had heard, and the laughter he shared with the community filled his heart with joy. As the event unfolded, he took a moment to step back and reflect on how far he had come, from the isolated businessman to a man rooted in purpose and connection. The fundraiser was not just a means to an end, it was a celebration of community, resilience, and hope. At the end of the day, as Victor stood on a makeshift stage to thank everyone for their support, he felt a swell of emotion. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady yet filled with gratitude. "This isn't just about raising money, it's about coming together as a community to support one another. Together, we can create a brighter future for our children and ourselves." With each word, Victor felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. The journey was far from over, but he knew he was on the right path. The change of heart he had experienced was just the beginning, and he was eager to see where it would lead him next.